Hi, you're watching VGO 40 and this is VGO Girl, and today we're going to talk about the Icewind Valley dungeon, and we're going to talk about all of the bosses. And this is not a perfect run. It has some problems, which I think is actually pretty good because it shows you some of the problems that you'll encounter with the dungeon if you don't run it correctly and how you do run it correctly. So here we're going to get started. We're just going to go through and clear all these beginning mobs and run up to the first boss. The first boss is the easiest of the three. You just want to pull the beginning mobs, and I think it's important to point out you cannot just do auto combat for these bosses, anything in the dungeon. It really doesn't work. So we're going to clear out some of the mobs, the boss gets pulled. We're going to go ahead and pull the boss. Now, for some of it, it's just kind of a straight kill, but if you'll notice, there's like this totem thing right behind me. You're going to want to go over and kill that because it does an AoE fire damage. Move out of the circles, the typical thing. Now, if you look at the screen, it says to eliminate the frost wizard as soon as possible. There's three, so you're going to need to run over to the three. One just down there. You'll see the other two. They've got this blue line, stretching to it. Go over, kill each of these frost wizards. And there's two, and then the third one is over just behind us. So if you look at the boss, he's got a shield on him. You can't do any damage to him, so you need to kill those three frost wizards in order to attack the boss again. So that's just kind of a repeat. Move out of the circle, kill any totems that appear for the AoE, and kill the frost mages that put the shield on the boss, and you've got your first boss down. Once the first boss is down, we're just going to go run up and clear all the mobs up to the second boss. It's really nothing too exciting, but clear all these mobs all the way up. When you get up to the last boss, pull the mobs down, and then there's a few, like about six mobs in front of the other boss. Try and kind of pull those back without pulling the boss, and kill those as well. And then you're ready for the second boss. So the second boss is a little tricky. You have to do a couple things. First off, you'll get a message that he's casting a spell. You need to interrupt him. And if you don't, it does a kind of a large scale damage to everybody. A lot of times, lots of people die. So make sure that when you are fighting him, you pay attention to the messages. Now here's the interrupt the deadly spell message. You need to interrupt it. If you don't, you'll see that we just took a lot of damage because nobody interrupted it. So again, you kind of get stunned and then more people die. This case, we did pretty decent. We didn't all die, but it does happen a lot. So make sure you pay attention to that message. The free the trap spirits. Somebody has to go over to these little fire guys and free them. The tank, it doesn't work very well if the tank does it because then you're getting interrupted constantly. Now you'll see this red ball in the background. This is when you free the trapped spirit. So the tank is going to take the boss over to this fireball, and then it clears the fireball out. Just avoid these little yellow circles like normal. And the other fireball went out, so I didn't have to pull the boss over to the fireball, but you do want to pull them over. So that's pretty much the majority of this fight. It's just you have to pay attention. When you free the spirits, free one, you get the fireball, bring the boss over to the fireball. When it says that he's casting a deadly spell, make sure to hit him with some sort of interrupt so that he doesn't kill you all. So here again, we're pulling the boss over to the fireball, and we just successfully interrupted one of his spells. So yay. And that's pretty much the majority of the fight. You just have to pay attention to what you're doing when it occurs. So that's the rest of that fight. Just pretty much a repeat of the same thing. Just pay attention to the messages, and once this boss is done, go ahead and move on to the next boss. There are no mobs between this one and the last boss. The last boss is very tricky though, so that one you really have to pay attention even more so than these bosses. Okay, so here we are at the last boss. Now the first thing we're going to do is real simple. We're just going to go ahead and straight kill this lady at the front. She's almost dead when she's done. She goes off, she summons a big dragon, and you stand around for a little bit and avoid the little yellow circles and the little spells, the little ice shards that come up from there until the dragon lands. Okay, there's a couple things that you need to pay attention to once the dragon lands. The first thing is that he kind of does this little cone of damage. It's pretty minor, but he does this little cone of damage. It's better if you kind of face the dragon away from the rest of the group so that they don't have to scatter and try and get away from it. Just the way it goes. Now, the second thing is you'll get this whirlwind message. Now, for the whirlwinds, it's important to have kind of the lower DPS, sometimes the tank, go into these whirlwinds and you get frozen. And all the rest of the people need to focus their attacks on the ice blocks to break the ice blocks. So you need to clear these whirlwinds so that, you can, otherwise there's like a big damage thing that gets done to everybody and everybody dies. So it's important to find those whirlwinds and go into them just one person at a time. Don't do all of them at once, but clear the whirlwinds. So you're going to, here's another message where we're going to get the whirlwinds. And so you want to go through and do that. And here I die, but it's okay because we beat the boss, so that's no big deal. I did not get to show you the third attack that he does, so we'll go ahead and take a look at a different group to see that one. Okay, so here you'll see that there's like a little yellowish arrow that appears over one of the players and these other arrows around him with a circle. And you all need to go into that circle so that that guy does not die. It spreads the damage out between the party, and that way you're not all it's not all focused on one person. Do some generic heals of everybody and you should be good to go. So you just got to keep an eye on that for between the whirlwinds and the little cone of damage, and that other one where it's all focused on one person. So just kind of read the messages, pay really good attention to what's going on, and you hopefully should be able to beat the boss. You're watching VGO 40 and this is VGO Girl, and hopefully you found this helpful for how to get through the Icewind Valley dungeon.